Welcome to Between State Lines.
Welcome back to Between State Lines, episode 15. It's a little bit of a shakeup here. We were planning originally to have a psychic on the pod, and we rearranged that due to Stephanie having some personal things going on, and she's taking time away from the podcast, and we're thinking about her, and hopefully, she is doing all right, and our thoughts are with her family and her.
Yeah, and you get me, a bonus.
Yes, this is my wife, Emily. She is the wonderful guest co-host. So
It will not be permanent.
She is not a believer in the paranormal. She's
Absolutely not.
Big skeptic. So she'll be here this week, and we're going to talk about some scary stories that we found on Reddit. And then next week will be the psychic episode. And then the week after, we will have a TikToker on who discusses scary stories. And I've watched a lot of her content, and she's pretty phenomenal. So she'll be on then as well. And then exciting news, we have 2 ghost hunters coming on in the weeks following that. So we are super excited to have all these guests, and we're excited to have Emily on as our first official guest co-host.
Holden adamantly did not want me to co-host with him for his podcast when he was thinking of podcasting.
To be fair, Emily told me that she doesn't believe, and we've had countless debates on supernatural and ghosts. Yeah. So we will strive forward in this episode with Emily being the skeptic and me being the believer here. And we'll start with a story that I found actually years ago, and I was always terrified of this happening to me in the world. It's titled The Bag Lady, and it's on our Let's Not Meet from the username Maltese Panda. And this is from 11 years ago, so it's an oldie. I've mentioned it on the podcast before, never actually read it, so here goes. I have always had an innate fear of the night, not so much the dark, but the night itself. As a child, my imagination was overcome with stories of creatures that come alive at night and the safety offered by a house and light. I never had anything to base this fear on until a night when I decided to go with a buddy of mine to a baseball game and got stuck at a light at 2 a.m. after dropping him off at home. Of course, that night, the game went into extra innings, so I didn't get a chance to drop my friend off at his house until well after 1 a.m. Everything was fine on the way home until I hit a light right before the street that led to my house. It was a T-junction, and I was turning right. The light is one of those that you think is broken until it finally turns green when you finally decide to just run it. Of course, I pulled up right as the light turned red. I would have just run the light, seeing as no one was there, and it was closing on 2 a.m. on a school night, but earlier that week I had heard the phrase, "Character is what you do when no one is looking." And for whatever reason, that was the night I decided to prove to myself that I was a man of character. Big mistake. I pulled to a stop at the light, feeling good about myself, bordering on self-righteous, when I happened to look out my window to the left and noticed a lady sitting all alone on a bus bench. We made brief eye contact, and I quickly looked away. It was too late. I could see movement out of my peripheral vision and knew she was coming my way. I looked out the window.
Thank you.
No, not at all. I would have gone to the light. I would not.
Well, if you're turning right on a T, like, you just need to stop and make sure no one's coming. Why are you waiting?
But what if it's a no turn around? They have those somewhere. It's very rare, but they do exist. I'm going to give this guy the benefit of the doubt that it was an intersection that he couldn't turn right onto on red.
Either that, or he's the kind of guy that you yell at in the car. So,
although, you know what, I told Emily this the other day, I have such low faith in humanity nowadays that when I'm turning onto or even going across a one-way road, I look both directions. I don't just assume that traffic is going the right direction. I look the other way and make sure no one's coming. And I don't trust anyone nowadays at all.
I mean, it's a fair assumption considering where we live. Nobody really pays attention. Anyways, get back to your scary story. I would have already gone. Probably also because I wouldn't be stopped and waiting at a red light in the middle of the night. Like, get lost.
Too many bad stories. Okay, so she started moving. I looked out the window and noticed she was carrying a bag. I quickly checked my doors were locked and all my windows were up. I then moved my right foot above the accelerator just in case and braced myself for what was to come. I was hoping it would just be an awkward exchange and was praying for a quick light change before she reached me. So I could just get out of there. I knew there was a slim chance of that. She walked right up to my window, put down her bag, and began to tap on my window.
No, thank you. Already gone.
At this point, I'm already gone. I nervously looked up at her, and she motioned for me to put my window down. I had automatic windows, so I just imagined pushing too hard on the window button and that thing going all the way down.
Yeah, you don't open your window. This was written by a man, wasn't it? Men would put their window down. Girls would already be gone.
You know, I'm gonna assume it is a man because that you're right. Men are dumb. But this guy also, if it is a guy, seems like he's never seen a horror movie because literally
Get gone. What are you doing?
There's things you don't do in a horror story, and this is one of them. If someone walks up to you at 3 a.m.
Like, just in general, if somebody walks up to you at 3 a.m. in your car, even if they're pretending they need help, get out of there. Like, no.
You know what?
No, thank you.
During the day, I would be gone.
Thank you.
I'd be gone.
Like,
I don't like talking to people in general, so if you walk up to me, I am out of there. The interaction would have never lasted. Okay, so she started tapping on the window, and he flicked the button lightly with his finger.
No.
Not at all. This guy is a moron. The window moved microscopically down, but she did not seem to notice or care. She leaned in and began to talk. She said, "My boyfriend beat me up. I have a friend who lives down the street. Can you give me a ride?"
No.
I should stop.
Unless you're my mother. My mother would have given her a ride.
Your mother would have given him a ride. She would have not waited for the knock on the window.
100%.
Door unlocked. Get in. We're going. I should stop and give a brief physical description of the bag lady. She was small and skinny of indeterminate age. She was either in her mid to late 20s and lived a hard 20 years in the street, or she was 60 years old and lived a moderately hard life in the street. All that to say, just by looking at her, there was no way to verify her story. She looked beat up by life, not by a boyfriend. But there was something about her delivery. It was robotic and seemed practiced, and like she was disconnected for the moment.
So you say, "Ma'am, I will call the cops for you. They'll be here in 30 minutes because cops are inefficient. I will not wait with you." Like,
I'll call you an Uber and then see ya. So she seemed disconnected for the moment, and that made my skin crawl. And after a brief, about a second, debate on whether I should do it, I told her I had to get home and could not give her a ride. That was the first decision that guy made. That's the right decision.
Well, he had to sit and think about it. Like, again, this is a man. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm married to a man, but that's about as far as it goes.
You know, funny story. When we went on our honeymoon to Cozumel, I guess it's notorious. They have people there who try to dupe you into going with them. And I thought it was because they murder you, but no, it's because they take you on these long-winded sales pitches for a timeshare. And so this lady, we had purchased tickets to get to our hotel with a pre-arranged service. So we didn't need anyone.
I had pre-planned it. To the T, like, we were getting off the airport. I knew where we needed to go. I knew that we needed to not talk to anybody. And we had already paid for a shuttle, so we didn't need a ride anywhere because I had already paid for it. And I told Holden on the flight over, like, as we were getting close to land, I was like, "Hey, when we get out, we're going to walk, once we get through customs, we're walking through the door to the end. hanging a left, and then the people we're going are wearing this shirt. And I had a printout. He heard none of it.
To be fair, we had been up since like 2 a.m, so I was low on sleep and I was losing it. But
I had 100-degree fever, so no excuse.
So we get to the airport in Cozumel, and this nice lady, nicer than anything in the world, was offering to help us find our ride. And I assumed she was being helpful and being nice in general. And Emily was not having any of it, and she like kept trying to leave the conversation. And I was like, "You're being incredibly rude. Like, this lady's being super nice, talking to us and helping us, and you're just blowing her off for no reason. You're being a jerk. I just married you, but you're being a jerk." And turns out it was the right decision to us. But all that to say, I would have fallen for this probably in one world or another.
Yeah. We did get to the hotel with
we were not murdered.
We were not murdered. We were very safe. We never left the hotel. We're very boring. But also, Holden tried. Holden tried to waste the first 4 hours of our honeymoon in a timeshare. Like,
you underestimate my ability to say no to people. I'll be like, no, I'm gonna no.
No, I completely estimate your ability to be awkward and get sucked into it and not have like,
maybe we would have gotten free breakfast. Okay, so back to the story. So after my first refusal, she leaned in closer and said the same thing. "My boyfriend beat me up. I have a friend who lives down the street. Can you give me a ride?"
No, call your friend, girl.
This time I felt more confident when I decided to give her a ride. I'm sorry, I can't read tonight. This time I felt more confident when I declined to give her a ride and told her I had a curfew and had to get home. She leaned in a third time, and her statement began, "My boyfriend beat me." At this point, the light changed. I slowly lifted my foot off the brake and started rolling forward and began muttering an apology. She didn't move. She just looked at the light and looked down at me, leaned in closer, and said 5 words that have haunted me ever since. "You made the right decision." Then she picked up her bag and walked towards the bench. I peeled out of the intersection and cried and screamed all the way home. I have no idea what I plan to do or if there are people waiting to jump me in my car.
Oh, 100%.
But
100%.
But that encounter has haunted me ever since and has confirmed in my mind that nothing good happens after dark. I got chills reading the line, "You made the right decision." As soon as I've read this before, and it's been 5 years or so, but reading that line again, I got goosebumps in the back of my neck. That was took me back to when I read it the first time.
Yeah, no, thank you. Absolutely not. Like, because there are people that do that. That's like a thing. And like, that's also why it's very surprising that my mother has not been murdered yet. My mother would have picked that woman up.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
She probably would have taken her to a restaurant first, but like, my mom would be dead.
Yeah. I mean, like you mentioned, that these things happen in the real world. Like, whether or not this particular story was true, these things happen. I mean, there have been true stories. People like have been driving down the road late at night and the road is blocked by what looks like a car accident. And it's just people, it's usually on smaller, 1-lane roads, but people are off to the side of the road and they're waiting for you to stop and help the person who's in the accident.
Nope.
Which means if it happens, you come across that at 3 a.m, dude, you just call the police and you roll on by. And in this case, where she comes to you, just peel out of there and dope. Peace out.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And don't roll down your window. You can get her little fingers in there, yank it. Like,
you know what I'm thinking about though? You said so. He could have turned right. I think
at any point.
I think this guy. He must have.
Is he British?
He must. Is that what it is? British? Oi, governor. No, that's baseball. There's not baseball in the UK. They don't have good sports.
Yeah, I can't think of a. No, I think he's just being dumb.
I think, but he peeled through it, so it makes it sound like he went straight. So I think what my thought is.
He said he was turning right.
Did he say he was turning right, or did he just say? Did I miss that point?
I swear. He said he was turning right.
No, it's turning left.
Oh.
So we're dumb.
I'm so sorry. gentleman from 11 years ago.
Maltese Panda, we apologize. We are... See, I knew. I thought... My original thought was maybe he mistook a T intersection for, like, just an intersection, like a, you know, a plus sign, like a standard intersection. Or I thought maybe that's what he was calling a T intersection mistakenly. But if he's turning left, that makes more sense.
Yeah. No, thank you. So I also picked out a story. Mine is not nearly as long as yours.
My next one's long, so.
Okay, good. Because I only picked out one because I didn't realize that I needed to pick out multiple. But it's from r/let's not meet, username some if. It's titled Mountain House. It says, a few years ago, my boss let me and my family stay in his mountain house. This is not a secluded home. It's pretty close to the other houses, a nice community, but still, it feels secluded when you're in the house. It was built in the 70s and has a spiral staircase. It's 2 floors. The top is level with the upper slope, and the bottom floor is the exact mirror of the slope that is level with the bottom of the slope. Oh, sorry, that was not a coherent sentence. The bottom floor is an exact mirror of the top floor. That is level with the bottom of the slope. We always board our dog up, but because this was a last minute trip and a big travel weekend, we had to bring the dog. The second night started off perfectly. It was cold and raining. We had the fireplace going and we were watching The Office. The kids were asleep, and shortly after, my wife and I turned everything off, checked the doors, and went to bed. I don't know how much time passed, maybe 15, 20 minutes. I heard some slight thuds, but it was raining, kind of windy, and the branches from this one tree would hit the back wall. Then I heard what sounded like someone coming up the spiral stairs. Literally, as soon as my mind processed the noise, my dog, sleeping in the living room, raised absolute hell. I don't think I have ever heard her do this. I had my pistol, went downstairs, and saw muddy shoe prints leading in and out of the door from the bottom floor. I'm perplexed because I know we locked the door, but there were no signs of forced entry. While I'm looking around, my wife calls the police, but they actually pull up to my neighbor's house as she's on the call. So my wife and kids load up in the car. We pull into the neighbor's driveway. I wanted them out of the house. And come to find out, they had just experienced the exact same thing. Someone coming in from the bottom, dog raised hell, etc. It was strange because they also said they had locked everything up, but there were no signs of forced entry. We left a statement with the police, and I hated to do this because it was 11 p.m. at this point, but I called my boss and told him we were going to stay in a hotel and head home the very next day. It really freaked us all out. I do not know what came from this. However, about a week ago, I was just Googling the area again, and one of those pages that lists the arrest popped up with the headline, "Man Arrested After Alleged Break-in and Assault." I don't remember the exact headline. Then about a week after that, another article came up that had the victim's name. After a quick Google and property search, the victim lives about 2 roads over. My guts say it's him, and I don't know. I hope not, because he was about 6'2" and about $275. We love the mountains, and we have been back, but we have stayed in hotels. We tried a nice little private cabin, but nobody slept.
So he heard footsteps, or he heard a thud, and then he saw footsteps in his house.
He heard somebody come up the spiral staircase. His dog barked. He went down to investigate, and there were muddy footprints coming from the door that was locked.
So where did the guy go? Is he still in the house, you think?
I don't know.
See, my thing is, like, he got his family out of there. But, like, if someone broke into my house into the bottom floor, and I see visual evidence, like muddy footprints, I'm not taking my family past that area. Like,
well, there's 2 levels. They're both connected. Like, it's on a mountain. So, like, there's probably a way.
there's probably a way out
on the top.
That's really weird. I wonder if it's like one of those cases where the guy was living in like a crawl space, and the thud was like them getting out of the crawl space. Because there have been stories people like have. There's one infamous one where a lady was living in a guy's attic, and she would come out every night and steal his food, and he didn't realize it until he noticed he was missing food, and then he had a camera set up and he saw her like come out of the ceiling, get food, and then go back into the ceiling. But like that's terrifying. I don't want that to ever happen to me. Like, I mean, our crawl space is pretty hard to get into, but
And
it's
be
like
a very skinny
that big
person.
window.
But I was just thinking when I read that, I was like, so I have insomnia and night terrors. And so, like, if I woke up and I heard that, I would have just written it off as I had dreamt it. And if I had tried to wake you up saying I heard it, you would have written it off that I had just dreamt it.
No. I see. I am always on edge about someone breaking into our house, like being murdered. That's my like fear. But I think any noise growing up, especially growing up, like, I mean, the podcast audience knows and Emily knows, like my mom used to tell us there are ghosts in the world and like we do seances and stuff like that. So any little noise that I heard as a kid, I instantly was like investigating it or trying to figure out what it was. And so any little noise up here in this house or in my life, even before I met you, I would like register it as noise. And like there have been times where you've been sleeping and you're on your sleep medicine, so you're out dead to the world, and I'll hear a noise down here, and then like it's just the cats doing something stupid, like, you know, messing with something, but or our daughter's toys like going off downstairs at 3 a.m, which she didn't think it's a ghost, but like they're all going off at the same time. The cats were upstairs.
The cats move pretty quickly.
But yeah, I would have probably woken up, and if you woke me up and said, "Hey, I heard a noise downstairs," I would have.
But I don't even know if I would have woken you up.
You probably wouldn't. You probably would fall asleep. But I would also I might hear it. If it's loud enough for you to hear it in your sleep, I probably would. If it's loud enough for you to wake up in your insomnia,
This is
medicine.
not medicated me because I don't have night terrors when I'm medicated.
That is not true.
Have I had a night terror when
You've had night terrors before when you're medicated.
When?
Will you consider like talking in your sleep, like saying like weird things, night terrors, like
no
scary things, night terrors, like you pointing at things in the corner of the room that aren't there?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
When have I done that on medicine?
Several times before our daughter was born. She woke up on several occasions and would point to the corner of the room before realizing that it was just nothing, and she wouldn't tell me it was nothing. She would just go back to sleep, and so I'm there at, again, like 2 a.m, thinking there's someone in the room. And she's dead to the world again.
You told her your podcast about the first time I did that to you?
Yeah, she didn't tell me that she had this insomnia, night terrors. And so we went camping.
And Holden had never been camping before.
I had never been camping before. And so we're sleeping, and it's, again, probably like midnight, 1 a.m. in the morning. And I'm already on edge because I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like, I mean, not really in the middle of nowhere, but I'm out in the woods. I'm vulnerable. Like, there's no lock on the tent. Like, anyone can just walk in because it's a zipper. But she wakes up, doesn't just wake up. She shoots up awake and points to the corner of the tent, like adamantly that something is there, and like seemingly terrified out of her mind, and then just says "oh" and goes back to sleep. And I'm like, what the absolute fuck did you see? Like, what is going on here? And I'm like high alert, thinking like someone is outside the tent. Like, that's my worst fear. Like, I'm reaching for my pocket knife I just bought for that trip in particular for protection. I'm reaching for that. And she had just like had night terror of there being a fire in the corner of the tent.
It was very convincing.
And not only a fire, she was a fire that a horse or something. You said there was something just
it was fire. Blue. It was a blue fire.
A blue fire. So it was just a very odd experience that I had. And then one time, I think this was a night terror that you were on your medicine for. She woke up screaming again at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and like I was aware that she had night terrors. But like, can you imagine being asleep, dead asleep, and then someone waking up next to you screaming bloody murder?
You're welcome.
Not only was I terrified, I'm sure the neighbors were like, "Wow, he's murdering his wife," and then like the next day, seeing her alive and well. But like, night terrors. That's your thing. That's your stick.
That's my shtick.
Your shtick. You choose to have them.
Oh, there was this is unrelated to horror, but maybe you would think it's spooky. So I used to work at summer camps. And I was working at a summer camp that the like upper staff, I was the director, like sleeping area was connected to the offices. And I had gone to bed because I'm an old lady and I go to bed. Even at 23, I go to bed early. And I went to bed. I took my medicine and I went to sleep. And like an hour later, I got up and just walked and just stood in the doorway of the office where like my other directors were like, I don't know, watching a movie. Just me standing in the dark. And they tried to talk to me and I didn't say anything. And I just went and laid back down. Like, I mean, that's just me being terrifying. But I haven't done that to you.
Yet. But now I'm kind of spooked. Like our daughter will do the same thing because I did that as a kid, where I would wake up, I'd be sleepwalking, and I would go in my parents' room, and I would stand at the side of my mom's bed, like literally a foot or 2 feet from her face, and just stand there because I was sleepwalking, and she'd wake up like. You know, can you imagine waking up and seeing someone standing right in front of your face? Like, even if you don't believe in the ghosts and shit like that, like, that's still freaking terrifying. Like, no, thank you. I'm good. So I can guarantee you that my karma is probably my daughter's going to start doing that when she's old enough to not be in a crib anymore. And that's not looking good for me.
Also, one time at a different camp, we were like sleeping in these tents. They're like platform tents. And like I went to bed, tucked myself in, like cozy. And when I woke up in the morning to like start getting all my campers up, I was dressed in different clothes, wearing my shoes. Like, I don't know who I was out terrorizing that night. Because I also can't see at night. Like,
she's blind.
I'm incredibly blind. And like, and that was like, so the one where I was being creepy in the office, that was on the beach, but like the outside, it was just like flat grass, like very like manicured lawn kind of thing. But the one where I like woke up fully dressed in my shoes, like that's up a mountain. Like it's not easy to navigate. Like it's, I don't know how I didn't die, but
okay, so our next story is from our true scary stories.
ooh.
And this is a tribute to Stephanie because as we all know, Emma doesn't know this. Steph used to hitchhike when she was younger.
I do know. I
You
listen to the
podcast. You did?
podcast.
Okay, well look at this. I'm number one fan right here. So
You don't want me as a co-host, and you don't think I listen to your podcast. I'm very supportive.
So-
Thank you very much.
So as a refresher, Steph used to hitchhike in out where she used to live. The story is titled "The Hitchhiker That Almost Murdered Me," and as we know, that is a common theme that Steph and I have talked about, how she could have been murdered in a different timeline. Maybe she was murdered in the original timeline, and because of quantum immortality, she's now in this timeline and is not murdered. So, like, maybe quantum immortality is...
I was promised there would be no callbacks to nonsense.
We can't prove or disprove that quantum immortality is real. Okay, but so here we go. The hitchhiker that almost murdered me. It was a hot summer day, and I had gone for a hike and got seriously lost, which I'll save for another story. Suffice it to say, I had hiked through... What if this is one of Stephanie's stories? Like, what if this is her...
What's the username?
Mental Watercress 638. I'll have to ask
Steph,
her when
is that
she's
you?
back. Yeah, is that you, Steph? It'd be funny if I'm reading her story. Suffice it to say, I had hiked through trackless wilderness for mile after mile. And even when I found a road, I was so far from a car, I didn't know which direction to go. I was dead tired, exhausted, and still had several miles back to my car. Finally, I was on the way home late afternoon on a very hot on a very hot, sunny summer day after many hours lost in mountains and woods. It was about 15 miles to home, and I live out in the country. As I start into the drive, I saw an overweight, out of shape fellow hitchhiking. Oh man, this is not about someone who hitchhiked. It's about hitchhiker. So it's a reversal. Still applies. So he's picking somebody up. He's not being the one that's hitchhiking. To clarify, I misread the story to begin with. As I started into the drive, I saw an overweight, out of shape fellow hitchhiking in the direction I was going.
Just me.
Just
That's just me. I say I don't want to do this hike anymore. Please pick me up. I'm done.
I saw that he had a long, hard walk in front of him, just like I had completely. My God, I can't read tonight. I saw that he had a long, hard walk in front of him, just like I had just completed only 20 minutes ago. Of course, I felt sorry for the fella, having a similar ordeal as I just had, and so I stopped and motioned for him to get in. No, you don't do that. Your mom would, though.
No, my mom has. Like, with me in the car as like a 17-year-old. Mom just picked up a random hitchhiker, like, drove him into town. I don't think we gave him any money. We didn't die, but I was 17. And my mother is not like if somebody was attacking us, my mom would not be able to fight us off.
You didn't die in this timeline, but according to quantum mortality, you died in that timeline, and now you're in this timeline.
I am never joining your podcast.
And this timeline, you're still alive. And so you die in this timeline, and then you go into a new timeline.
And then the other timeline, I murdered you.
Well, then I would be in another timeline. I'd move over where you didn't murder me, so.
And then that other timeline, I'm free of you. We've never gotten married.
No, another timeline. According to quantum immortality, your life stays the same. You just jump into a different version of yourself. So, like, we're having this discussion right now, and you murder me in this moment, I'm dead. I would go into a different timeline where we're also doing the podcast together, where I'm alive.
And then I would murder you again.
And then I'd go to a different timeline, and it would repeat over. How does that work, though? What if she decides to murder me in every single timeline?
And I will.
Did I cease to exist?
Yes.
What about egg theory? Okay,
we're not.
I'm gonna stop here.
Doing
okay. So, anyways, he stops to get the guy side of the road. I did not realize my ordeals for the day were not yet over. As he opened the door, he gave me a look and we exchanged a greeting as he squeezed into the front seat. He was going to a spot on the highway. This guy is using a lot of words that are just kind of repetitive. He was going to a spot on the highway, way to my house, and away we went, engaging in light conversation. I glanced down at his side. I noticed a prosthetic arm made out of a hard, heavy ballistic plastic with a metal hook for grasping instead of a hand. From the conversation, he was an out-of-work construction heavy equipment operator whose house was undergoing a bank foreclosure. He was basically squatting illegally on his own property, probably hitching around during the day to avoid the sheriff evicting him and coming back in the evening to let himself in the basement. Don't evictions just you put it on the door and if you don't answer or don't respond to it?
Happen.
Yeah, but
you definitely don't. This, the other one seemed like it could have been feasible. This seems like somebody's
probably
bad
storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
An English editor would have too many.
Well, you're very repetitive. You could have said a construction worker, but he's like, I gotta describe it to a T.
That is 100% not how foreclosure works. In case you're wondering, you can't just avoid people. It's not like when they come to repo your car, and even with that, the repo man always finds you. So,
also, it's kind of giving me the vibe this guy thinks that homeless people are murderers because
or people with limb differences are murderers.
Because Ted Bundy hitchhiked and murdered, and he was not a homeless vagrant.
Did you know? Have I told you the story of when I hitchhiked?
You hitchhiked?
Yeah. Do you want me to tell right now?
Go for it.
It's really disruptive. So it was, I don't know, I think I was maybe 22.
What made Ted Bundy think what made me saying Ted Bundy make you think of this story? were you almost murdered by Ted Bundy? Well, that would wait for your time, but
No, I was not
Ted
almost.
Bundy copycat.
So it was like, I was like 22, and it was St. Patrick's Day. I swear I told you the story. And like I had taken public transit like downtown to go to a piano bar with some friends. We all took public transit, and this was pre Uber, and we were like having a joyous time, like mildly drunk, and didn't realize that the town that we were in closed public transit early because they wanted to discourage people like drinking. So logical explanations. And so we tried to call for a cab, but like again, it was pre Uber, like pre really internet on your phone. Like I'm very old. And so couldn't get through to the cab companies. So my friend in like her geniusness was like, let's just walk. So hi Julie. Hi princess. And so we just decided to start walking, and like we were probably like the city, like we're in blocks, so we were at like First Street and we had to get to like 2800 Street, so like a lot of blocks. And also just like walking through not a great part of town. And at this point, like phones were dying. It's like 3 a.m, and we go to a gas station, and I was like dead set. I was like, we're just gonna wait at this gas station until it's morning and we can call somebody's parent who will wake up, because my parents won't wake up. Like, and like I don't know why anybody else is. I don't know why we didn't call anybody. Like we weren't being that smart. But so we're waiting in this gas station, and like we'd asked the like attendant, and we're like, is it okay if we just like hang out here? And it's also before standardized cell phone chargers, so it's not like we could like charge our phones, because they're all like stupid, like one of the ones that like slide out, like couldn't charge the phone. And this guy was like buying like alcohol and like snacks at the checkout, and he's like, oh, like you need a ride, like I can give you a ride. And there's like 4 of us, and I was like, I don't want to do this. And I think there was one other person who was like, I don't want to do this. But like 2 of our friends were very drunk, and they were like, sure, most definitely I want to go. And so I was like, well, I don't want to do this. I also don't want to be by myself in a random gas station in a part of town I don't know. And they're kind of drunk. So like, I don't want them to go in this. They've already like in the car. Like, and so squeezed into the back seat with my 2 friends. My one friend's up in the front. And we told him like where we needed to get, like we're at this like train station, like that's where our car is. Like, can you take us there? And he's like, yeah, it's like 20 minutes away, which like 20 minutes by car, I don't know why we thought we could walk there. We're all in heels, like it was very dumb. And so he's like, yeah, of course. And he starts driving, and again, pre like phones really existing, where you could like check your GPS, you'd have to have like a TomTom or a Garmin. And so he just starts driving, and we're driving for like ever, like for so long. And there is this big like industrial plant on the side of the mountain, and you can see the lights, and we're getting closer and closer to the lights. And that's the exact opposite side of town of where our car was. And we're just driving there. And then we're like in the middle of freaking nowhere. He stops, he pulls over, he gets out to go and pee in this field. And so we're like 4 of us in the car, like middle of no phones, no nothing. And like, I'm like, what do we do? Like, where do we go? And again, poor decisions were made. 22-year-old me was an idiot. We just stayed in the car, and we're still driving around. This like 20-minute easy drive is like, now we're like at an hour and a half. And I finally was like, I don't think we're going the right way. Like, we're on the other side of the highway. Like, we should not be going toward these mountains. And he like corrects himself and gets to the other side. And we finally get to the train station. And he locks the car doors on us, like as we park. And he's like, I need a kiss from you guys as payment for this car ride. And it was like, one of the girls I was with was engaged and she wasn't going to do it. And like, I didn't want to do it. And we're like trying to talk away out of it. And then my poor friend in the front seat agreed to it and had to make out with this like random person in their car before he would like let us out. And we didn't die.
In this timeline.
In another timeline, we probably died like 8 times. But like that was the one and only time I hitchhiked, and I did not enjoy it. And I will also never go out on St. Patrick's Day again. It's ruined St. Patrick's Day for me.
So back to the story. He let the guy in, and he's just trashing on construction workers who are homeless, apparently, who are also amputees. So he said he's basically a homeless vagrant and a transient that still had a physical address. Didn't raise any flags with me at the time, though maybe it should have. I have a repertoire of interesting stories I like to tell. I dusted one off and told him a yarn or two.
Oh my gosh.
My God, how old is this man?
I don't know.
This guy
He's
sounds...
got to be like 21, thinking that using a yarn or two and repertoire make him like, he just sounds like a milady.
Milady. So this guy
Right, Julie.
is weird. So I dusted one off and told him a yarn or two to pass the miles and be friendly as to make the ride easier. He listened politely, and I found he liked to talk a little bit about himself. My tales must have encouraged him, because he began to tell me a very strange tale of his own. He began to relate to me that years ago, during what he claimed was one of the worst blizzards of the century, in his words, a woman had a bad accident on the U.S. route that went past his house. He said that she was badly injured from the accident and bleeding to death. His story continued, and he mentioned that the weather was so bad that the road was undrivable, but as a construction operator, he had a backhoe. He said that he loaded the injured woman.
He had a backhoe at his house? Do you realize how big? Like a backhoe is big.
I mean, maybe perhaps he owns or owned the construction company,
and he's just storing heavy equipment at his...
How does it...
Like, my aunt and uncle had one, but they had like a giant hunk of property out in the middle, like hundreds of acres.
I thought it was maybe
maybe the writer of this story forgot that detail. Was
like, or he's the guy's making it up because he's trying to sound like the story is true. I don't know. He said that he loaded the woman into the bucket of his backhoe and drove her 30 miles through the freezing cold and blizzard to a major medical center and delivered her to the ER.
Why would you put her in the bucket and not up with you? Why are you carrying her in the bucket?
That's a fair question. Okay, well, the author does acknowledge it's a pretty odd tale. That was a pretty odd tale, I thought. I am pretty smart. I am pretty street smart, having seen a lot of the world and some of the more dangerous places in it. Okay. I believe that he had changed up the story somewhat to protect the guilty. Okay, the thing is, I don't think that this part is like realistic, because I mean, if the guy is telling the truth and the hitchhiker did carry this woman in a hoe, like, I don't think I would automatically think the guy was guilty of hurting this woman, because if it's a blizzard, and it's very plausible that she got into a car accident in a blizzard and you just happened to find her, but like, I don't automatically think that this guy is the guilty party here.
Well, so the thing is, if she's able to at least drive a car, I mean, it sounds like she lost control of the car. It's not like an ambulance wouldn't be able to get to her. And also, like, That's just so unrealistic.
Yeah. So he went to share his story but disguise his role or what really happened. In other words, his story contained a kernel of truth, but he had changed a few details. I am quick to spot inconsistencies and also can analyze just as quickly.
Can you now?
It comes with the street smarts.
Oh,
Another word for survival instinct. All right, I hate this guy already.
he's so dumb. My dude.
What I think is true was that a woman who was fatally injured, perhaps someone who had come to his door for help. I think she died. I think he used the bucket loader to bury the body. The why and wherefore I could not guess at, but I had immediately gotten that impression.
Also, like, if this gentleman had brought a body in a bucket hoe, like, that would be like national news. Like, it would be like a weird story.
She'd also definitely be dead
100%
in the
dead.
cold. But also, like, how my thought is, like, if it's
blizzarding, how is he gonna dig a hole to bury a body in his perceived version? This gentleman has street smarts, though. He's very wise.
assuming a lot of this poor guy. So I'm on the hitchhiker's side right now. I don't know what else is coming. I'm on the hitchhiker's side for right now. It may seem weird to you that I came to the conclusion, but perhaps that what follows will convince you. Okay, so maybe we get with the guy in this part. As he ended his story, we came to the turn for his house. As I turned into the long driveway, he had just ended his story and now began to make improper propositions to me as to what he would like to have happen amorously. I was a bit taken aback, but simply told him politely that was not my thing and ended my conversation as we pulled up to his house, and he continued to insist. The problem was that he was not taking no as an answer. I realized things were rapidly getting out of hand, and I am a cool customer when dealing with actual stress and danger. My lady, I'm pretty hardcore, which discourages most potential malefactors, but not this guy, which shows just how dangerous he was. Okay.
Now he's just being a little homophobic.
He's just being an absolute tool. He wasn't getting out of the car now that we were stopped, and he had his hard... I almost thought it said hard on. He had his hard plastic arm, solid and heavy as a log, raised halfway between us, looking me straight in the eye and not saying anything. Having studied self-defense, I knew the deal.
Gosh.
If I looked away or blinked, he would knock me out with the arm.
Is this Milady or is this Dwight Schrute?
He was formidable as well. He may have been fat, but he was a construction worker with large arms and muscles from a life of heavy work. The weight was all to his advantage. Okay, so Steph, if you made it this far, this story no longer relates to you.
It's not about you at all.
Long ago, it lost got off the trail here. So the first sentence. So only relation to you is now just a hitchhiker. I knew the deal though, and I always had a plan in case a hitchhiker proved to be dangerous. So like this guy actually picked up multiple hitchhikers. I had my seatbelt on, and he didn't. The plan was to floor the car. Oh my god! Okay, this. Okay,
it's so fake.
I started this story, guys. I know we love to talk spooky here. I started the story thinking this was a scary story, and this is my fault. I should have proofread the whole thing, but this is getting ridiculous. Like I cannot get into this whole story. Like,
Milady, he's homophobic, fatphobic, hates disabilities.
Yeah, hates disabilities.
Hates homeless people. Hates.
I had my seatbelt on. He didn't. The plan was to floor the car into his house at about 60 and put him through the windshield. Even if I was injured or unconscious myself, hopefully he would be worse. So the idea was that the noise of a high-speed crash would bring neighbors to find out what happened, and I would also blare the horn. Okay, this is unrealistic. Like his plan, if this is real, his plan is to basically kill himself because he wants to avoid being assaulted or worse by a homeless man who's also an amputee, who's also fat. But
But
formidable enough where you can.
he'll use that fat to his advantage.
But I could see that if he went through the trouble of knocking. But I could see that if he went through the trouble on knocking me out for the purpose of a rape, that I likely would never wake up again. Someone this dangerous was not going to leave a witness that could put him in jail for the rest of his life. Likely he was a career criminal, and this was not his first rodeo.
Oh my!
The other secret learned from.
Well, then why are we reading this story?
The other secret, we have to finish it.
Do we?
We have to commit. The
we
other
do not have to commit to the bit. How long is the bit? It's very long.
No, we can get through it. Yeah, we're about right here. We have maybe like 2 paragraphs left.
That's just for you for editing. You're welcome.
Okay, this is gonna get you right here. The other secret learned from martial arts is never look away and hold the gaze, read the intent, and then spontaneously block or deflect the initial attack. This is definitely quite true. This guy could see from my eyes that he would have a real fight in his hands, and that I was fully ready for life or death combat. The situation ended when he opened the door and anticlimactically got out. I quickly backed out of the yard.
Not coming to murder you,
and
you freaking weirdo.
He was just the proposition. He just wanted to get some nookie nook, and I can't blame the guy. You just asked him to say no, then you move on.
This milady guy is writing his worst case scenario is just a chonky homeless man down on his luck propositioning.
No, wait. Back to the beginning here. I just want to see if he
was actually out fight.
If he actually said he was homeless.
Well, he's squatting. So technically he is housed, but when you're squatting, typically there's no.
Okay, yeah, he did say. I thought initially that I've forgotten that he actually said that he was homeless or squatting. I thought it was all like just this guy inferred that from his own assumption. But like, hey, you know what? If you're a hitchhiker and you want to ask for nookie nook, you know what? Take no as an answer. But there's nothing wrong with shooting your shot. Like if you want to say, hey, let's go inside, and that's no harm in that. If they say nope, then move on. But like hating a guy for even asking is a little weird when you're the one that actually picked up a hitchhiker. Here we go. So let's finish this. I thought that is the most dangerous motherfucker I have ever encountered. Literally based on nothing at all.
A dude sitting behind his computer is like, I am writing this greatly. Look at me.
I really thought I really should call the police and tell them to keep an eye on that scary bitch because it's only a matter of time before he tries to kill someone, and at least they will have a warning about him on the files. But I thought the police often don't seem to take me seriously, so this is like not the first time apparently he's talked to the police about something, and he didn't do anything other than pose a threat. No actual assault. So what can I do?
Pose a threat.
He didn't. He literally just propositioned you and then like.
This is like the people on Nextdoor is like, have you seen this person walking up and down the street? And it's just suspicious. It's just my pregnant ass waddling along.
The real reason that was now the situation was over, I wanted to forget about it. It had been a very long day. A police report would take another hour of my dinner time, and I would have to deal with possibly skeptical or unhelpful authorities. In retrospect, I now see that was a mistake.
What are you reporting him for? Like, I picked up a hitchhiker and he wanted to bang me? Like, what
and he didn't even press the issue. He just
he just stood there and had his maybe his arm was sore. Like he's wearing a prosthesis. Like maybe keeping it at this angle after huffing and puffing on a hike. Maybe he needs to raise it.
About 10 years later, the property was the site of a very active crime scene.
Mm-hmm.
A woman from a nearby state had come to live at that house and gone missing. I did not realize that his house was the site till I drove by one day and saw a state police crime scene bus, about 5 cruisers, and a police helicopter, everything marked off with crime scene tape. And then I thought, oh my, I really should have let someone know. It might have prevented this. And I was lazy and concerned more with myself that day. The girl's body was found later in a local pond in a freezer that had come from that house. Dark stories of a couple exploiting a young homeless girl down in her luck emerged, and it seems other folks were involved as well. A sordid tale that I won't go here out of respect for her family.
Here's my question. This house, this is 10 years later.
10 years later.
This gentleman had the
Could
house
be dead.
foreclosed upon.
Could be dead at this point. I mean, he's,
But, like, if it was foreclosed upon, he's not living there anymore. Like, the bank takes your house. Like, if it was foreclosed to the point that you were just squatting, like, the bank takes your house, the bank sells off your property. Somebody's always willing to buy it.
So I'm reading the comments here, and oh my god, this guy writes a lot. So someone asked about the police helicopter, said it seems odd, and so the Hook guy is supposed to be part of the couple that murdered the girl. He was asking if that was the case. And he said, yes, I still can't be sure Hook even still lived there, but what are the odds of two homicidal sex offenders living on the same property?
What? No, he's a sex offender or homicidal.
Where is...
What
Yeah, there's
are you
nothing in
talking
here
about?
that he
was just a... If the story isn't completely made up from your brain, he was just a gay man cruising. Like, that does not make you a sex offender. That just... And there's no way they still own the house.
There's no way.
There's no way. He didn't even own the house when it came to. Like, he was squatting there. They're going to clear him out.
Yeah, I picked a horror story.
You got hoodwinked.
I did. Okay, well, this one, hopefully, I read this one, I proofread it, so this one seems a little more realistic. This is the last one we're reading this on the podcast. Okay, it's from the same subreddit.
Is it the same gentleman?
Different gentleman,
Thank
but
you.
also a man. So we'll see if it's any different. It's called My Wife.
Did you read it?
I did proofread. It's a short story, so I proofread it enough.
Okay.
It's called My Wife Stepped on Something in the Lake. The next day, they found a body. That seems a little more realistic. By it's by user Peter_Puck. A few years ago, my daughter was a toddler. My wife and I used to take her to a nearby lake to picnic, swim, and just unwind. It was a peaceful spot, quiet, not too crowded. The kind of place where you could easily forget about the world for a while. One afternoon, after we finished eating, my wife decided to go for a quick swim while I stayed on the beach with our daughter. I watched her wade out into the water, the sun sparkling off the surface. A minute later, she suddenly stopped and turned to me, shouting something. At first, I couldn't make out what she said, but her expression was off. Then I heard her clearly. I think I just stepped on someone's face. I froze for a second, thinking maybe she was joking, but the look on her face wasn't playful. It was pale, almost terrified. She quickly started making her way back to the shore, her legs moving faster, like she couldn't get out of the water fast enough. When she got back to me, she was visibly shaken. She said that while she was swimming, her foot brushed against something soft, and at first she thought it was a rock or a weird patch of seaweed, but when she pressed her foot down, she felt the unmistakable shape of a face beneath the water, a nose and an eye socket.
Gross.
She swore she felt the hollow of the eye. I considered going in to check it out, but something stopped me. The unease in my gut, maybe, but we decided to pack up and leave right after that.
Blah, blah, blah.
The next day, the local news reported that a young boy had been missing for days, was found drowned in the same lake not far from where he had been. He'd been there the whole time, just beneath the surface. To this day, my wife is convinced that she stepped on his face.
That would be gross. I don't enjoy swimming in... Well, that's not a lie. I do enjoy swimming things, but I don't like putting my feet down where I can't see where I am in. Like, when you swim in, like, ponds, which you grew up in Fancyland, so you did not swim in ponds. But when you swim in ponds, the first, like, couple of layers before you hit, like, solid is just, like, I mean, it's just, like, vegetation that is being decomposed, and your foot kind of, like, squishes through it, and it's very gross.
Why would I want to be in that grossness?
Because you're not wealthy and have access.
I'd rather be hot shore than wade through that.
I've swam in many a
disgustingness.
lake and pond. But it's also really gross. But that's the thing is I would have to swim. Like I don't stand out in the water. Like rope swing me in, swim as much as I can. Like cuz it's so gross. It's like so unsettling. Like cuz you're just like you can't see anything and then you can just feel you're like somebody will have swim in a pond. That's not my husband who's would never. But
It sounds gross.
I prefer swimming in the ocean, but even that's kind of freaky. Sometimes you like put your foot down awkwardly and it's like, is that a shell? Is that a fish? Is that a shark?
It's a dead body. Well, now I have that on my conscious. Look out for dead body. Well, thank you everyone for joining and listening and getting this far. It was a little bit different this week. As a reminder, next week is going to be the psychic episode. And then the week after that will be their Halloween special, which will be the spooky stories, not from Reddit, from a TikToker who goes over ghost stories. So we are excited for that. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and we will see you all next week.
You will not see me next
I
week.
will not see. If she's not here, it'll be me and the psychic, but we'll figure it out.
You'll never see me again.
Thanks, guys.